Good evening, dear friends. I am Anshul, third semester student of MSc Computer Science in Technical University Munich. Today I will be giving a small lightning talk about patterns in touch gestures in Android. Smarty, next slide. Today's agenda contains two topics: touch mechanics, that are what our finger do on a touch screen physically, touch actions, that are the resultant behavior of these gestures. Smarty, next slide. Briefly discussing touch mechanics, it covers various different touch gestures or actions that a user can do on the screen. The gestures can be done using single, double or multiple finger touch. Smarty, next slide. Some touch gesture examples include single tap, double tap and long tap. Smarty, next slide. Some more touch gestures that involve motion of fingers, which are like drag, swipe or fling, long press drag, double press drag. You can see the steps involved in this motion gestures and what are the use cases for these gestures, such as scroll to dismiss, to move object or item from one place to other. Double press drag is also used for zoom in and zoom out operations. Smarty, next slide. Some of the pinch gestures involving two fingers, which are pinch open, which we use for zoom in or expanding some image, pinch close, which we use for zoom out or compressing some image, and rotate, which we use two fingers and we tilt our fingers around a single point. Smarty, next slide. Zoom pen activities that can be the outcome of pinch gestures. So, in the last slide I showed you like pinch zoom, pinch out, and these can be used for applications for image processing, maps, gaming and other apps. An interesting example of swipe gesture is to navigate through a list of similar items by left or right swipe. We also have implemented these gestures to navigate through the slides using Smarty Android application. So I will be going to the next slide using swipe gesture. So edge swipe involves motion which begins from outside the screen towards inside, generally used for bringing additional views or fragments on the screen, such as drawer fragment or notification panel. Smarty, next slide. A classic example of bouncing gesture is to pull down a list and let it refresh. This gesture is used almost in all modern emailing and messaging apps. Smarty, next slide. Now I will list some of the benefits of using these gestures in our application. First of all, it provides an intuitive user experience. Secondly, it makes the end user feel like he or she is in control of the application. Thirdly, it gives you an opportunity to add animation effects which give a very professional look and feel to your application. Smarty, next slide. Some of the references that I have used to build this presentation are listed here. Both of these references are provided by Google only. Smarty, next slide. With this I come to the end of this presentation. Thank you everyone for paying attention. If you have any questions, you can ask them now. So some of the people have doubt on the 10th slide. So I have to go back to the 10th slide. Smarty, previous slide. Smarty, previous slide. Smarty, previous slide. So, as you can see, a classic example of bouncing gesture is to pull down the list and let it go. So this gesture is always used when we want to refresh some page. So instead of providing a refresh button, we can just let the user pull down the list and let it go up So if this event is triggered by user, we should perform a asynchronous refreshing task which runs in background, and then on the result of the results, we can dismiss the refreshing pop-up or toast, and we can show the latest info in the list. Smarty, next slide. The only weakness with this command is that you have to keep your mic in the field of your voice, so there is not any distortion, and also if there is a noisy background, we don't have any noise cancellation algorithm implemented because we are using an external library which just provides some of the fast way of recognizing some keywords based on our language model which we made using simple few words such as Smarty, next, command, next slide, something like that. So to go to next slide, I will say again, Smarty, next slide. To go to the previous slide, I will say Smarty, previous slide. Smarty, previous slide. The only thing, if I have a column mic, it would be more easier for me to use this command. And if I am using this on a tablet, then it's really easy because the mic of the tablet is always in front of me and I don't have to pull it towards my face. So just navigating through all of the slides of this presentation, which are 13 in number. I'll go over. Smarty, next slide. 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 Smarty, previous slide. Please have a look on the slide numbers at the bottom of the slide. Smarty, previous slide. Smarty, previous slide. Smarty, previous slide. Smarty, next slide. Smarty, next slide. Smarty, next slide. Smarty, next slide.